Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers, and I'm looking today at a book from TOLLEY'S. It's the Tolley's LexisNexis publication on UK taxation of trusts. It's now in its 20th edition, and it's been written by Matthew Hutton. This is the book here, about 500 pages, nice front cover, nice comments on the back. What you've got here is some very useful index, a lot of detail in it, some exceptionally good appendices. Actually, there's a lot of useful form filling information there. The appendices are relatively short at the back, but they are very helpful. I particularly like the paragraph numbering at the sides, which I think is extremely helpful. This particular chapter is on avoidance, which is actually a very useful area for many people to read. Obviously at the front you've got the usual statutes and also the substantial number of cases that are listed there. So let me just tell you a little bit about what we think of this book. The review has appeared on the web and also in some of the Law Society and other journals. What we've given it as a title is The Taxation of Onshore and Offshore Trusts, all in one definitive and accessible guide, and that's what we've got here. This is often a complicated and bewildering subject for many people, and the taxation of trusts, therefore, whether they are income, capital gains or corporation taxes, are very clearly explained in this publication and to great effect in our view. So if you need to keep abreast of the latest developments in this area, you'll need the latest edition of TOLLEY'S, and TOLLEY'S are in fact a premier publishing firm in terms of the titles under the arm of LexisNexis. The bulk of the book's ammunition is delivered in part 1, the first 20 chapters in fact, on UK resident trusts, and it deals with income tax and what is called avoidance, in other words not paying tax where it's unnecessary, and I think that's an important area. It is somewhat controversial with some people, but it's an important area in itself. As I say, it looks at the types of trust, beneficiaries and trustees, involvement in starting a trust, running it and ending it. A great value, of course, to anyone in the Chancery Division, and I think probably those who are planning on a career in that area might look at it even if they're students, although we don't really get that much stuff until you're post any of the academic work these days. The detailed ramifications of inheritance tax are logically explored, and there's a chapter each for charitable trusts and stamp taxes, which I think is also helpful. There are 3 chapters devoted to the subject of compliance, another area where we've unfortunately got to have this sort of information. In my view, there's still far too much of this compliance, which is actually causing a lot of problems. But there again, that again is an issue which has bedeviled a lot of us for 20 years now. But we've got specifically information on income tax, capital gains tax and inheritance tax. And chapters 18 to 20 deal respectively with the interest and penalty regimes. Again important when you're actually giving the advice. Part 2, the last 5 chapters, focuses on non-UK resident trusts and should be ideal for those requiring reading on the subject for people outside the jurisdiction. Obviously it also includes families and individuals who are linked to trusts, and Hutton refers readers specifically to focus on this area in the specialist texts which are available on the subject as well, and I think that's a useful help because it points you in the right direction if the questions you've got can't be answered here. The book contains much new material, of course, and the main point of interest being that, as the author points out, the election of the coalition has led, amongst other things, to 2 new finance acts in 2010, and a major new development here, just to cite one example, is the return from June 2010 to variable rates of CGT. There's no change, however, in inheritance tax, as many breathed a sigh of relief on that one, I hasten to add, and some not so much so last year. These and all other recent developments are included in this new edition from updates concerning compliance and self-assessment to the impact of cases such as Brander, covering business property relief information and so forth. In addition to all this, the book is a mine of fiscal resources in our view to aid further research with tables of statutes and cases which I've indicated, and there are the 6 appendices. They're not particularly long, but they are actually very detailed and helpful at the back with the index. Now, for specialist practitioners whose clients demand and deserve the best advice in this complex field, we think that this actual edition of Tolley's is the best. It's indispensable. So let me conclude by saying that changes in the law have been taken into account up to the end of July 2010, and they provide the most definitive and accessible statement of the taxation of trusts to date. So thank you to all concerned in this very interesting area of law. Thank you. Bye-bye.